Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming with us. Coach Babers is going to start with a brief opening statement, then we'll take questions.
We're excited to get an opportunity to play NC State. Obviously, we were disappointed about what happened last week. But Dave Dorn has a fantastic football team. They're coming off a close loss to Wake Forest, a team that we played close, extremely close as well. We understand that it's going to be a difficult venue to play in. We've been there before. We understand that. But we're looking forward to having an opportunity to putting this football team back out front and seeing if we can change the narrative on what happened the previous week. Questions?
Questions? Start right here, Mark.
Hey, Coach. Your team was feeling pretty good before Saturday, I think. And so how do you get it back to that? How do you not let quote unquote Louisville beat you twice?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we've got to get back to playing football. That's not what we played Saturday. It's not vindictive of what we're trying to represent. We were very flat, and we weren't physical. And those things truly bother me, and it should bother everybody that was in this room on Sunday. So we're looking forward to seeing if we can change people's opinions of the last time we were out on the football field.
Did that surprise you?
Nothing surprises me, but I've been in it for a long time.
Yeah.
It disappoints me.
Coach, what kind of conversations have you had with your defensive backs, I guess particularly Deuce Chestnut, Eric Coley, after the game in terms of improving in coverage?
The big thing is you need to look at some of the routes that they were throwing. Those guys were throwing post routes all the way across the field. You time some of those routes, they were 3.4 seconds before the ball came out of the quarterback's hand. We had 1 sack during the game, okay? Everybody's responsibility, okay? The defense has to have a better pass rush. The DBs need to have a better coverage. We need to have better opportunities to mix things up, to have people guessing back there, okay? You just can't pin it on one person.
On offense, when you went back and watched the film, from an execution standpoint, what didn't go right?
Not enough fight, not enough struggle, not enough clawing and scratching.
So Garrett said after the game that obviously you knew they were going to bring an extra guy into the box. The goal was to make a check and run away from them. Did you feel like you were in the right spots and then the guys just weren't able to physically get it done?
Not all the time.
How much of those issues carry over to NC State and how you're preparing to attack that?
I don't understand when you say carryover. Some of it was mental mistakes on various people.
I guess if it's a similar style game plan, are the guys going to be put in similar spots with an opportunity to make that same check, or based on what NC State does, is it kind of different and they're going to be trying to do different things?
I don't want to say too much because this is a press conference that everybody looks at. But there's types of plays where you'll run it no matter what, and there's type of plays where you'll make checks on. We do both. Then there's other plays where you have other options off of those checks. You need to make sure that all those things are working well. But more importantly than all of that, there's a physicality to this game that you have to match. And if you're not going to play physical, it's going to be very, very hard to win no matter what style of football you play.
I guess unrelated to the Louisville game, can you speak to the lasting impact that Ernie Davis has had on the program since he won the Heisman?
Ernie Davis, I go back to all the old tapes and venues and people that I've spoken to that know of him, and just even Jim Brown. I mean, Ernie Davis was the first African American to ever win a Heisman Trophy. Anytime you say the word ever, that's something. And for the way he represented us, when I say us, I mean Syracuse University, being a first-round draft pick, never getting an opportunity to play in the National Football League. I have a football that has Lou Gosa, Ernie Davis, and Jim Brown's signature on it. I'm not going to tell you where it's at because the value is unbelievable. But just to think you had a ball with those three signatures on the same doggone football, I can't express the words of how important he is, not only to Syracuse University, but to history itself and what that Heisman Trophy Award represents.
Right. What is that greater impact that he's had beyond the Syracuse community? Or I guess how can you-
I think it goes into when you start talking about, I got to be careful how I want to say this. I think it's bigger than that. Okay, I think it's bigger than that. It's a really, really big deal, and I think it's bigger than football when you talk about what that represents.
Mark and Brent?
You have a reputation, well earned of producing passing games that are amazing to watch, right? How concerned are you that this team's passing game is not improving, is not showing any of that so far?
We need to get better. There's no doubt about it. The last 2 weeks is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable, and we need to get better.
What can be done? Is it changing everything up? Is it just small things that aren't being done? Or what can be done to improve that?
We're working on some of those things now, and hopefully they'll show up on the next performance.
Brent and then Steven?
Okay, I promise I'm not trying to get you fined, but my question is, what kind of conversation can be had about a player that has a targeting call that does not get ejected from a team? Is there a compromise that can be had there?
I think there's something coming up in the rules that may, in the future, that may condone that. Is that the correct word? I think there's something coming up in the rules in the future. Now, I do want to say this though. I saw the targeting foul, and the call was legitimate. Okay, and it wasn't a helmet-to-helmet contact. It had to do with the position of the crown of his head on a person's body. And you're talking about one of our team leaders, you're talking about one of our MVPs, you're talking about one of our team captains, and you're talking about someone that's not only extremely responsible, okay, but someone that does it the right way. And I told him the way he hit that young man was not safe for him. The young man got up and was fine, but it wasn't safe for him. And it's a happening for our player. He does not strike people like that, and he strikes a lot of people. But it's the first time that I've seen him in that position, and I was not happy, because that's a good part of that rule. We don't want our guys playing with extremely fanatical effort and to be striking people in that position. That is not how we teach it, and that's not how he normally performs it. With people moving and all kind of stuff, do I consider it a happening? Yes, I do. But that was dangerous, okay? And it's a big price to pay, but by the way the rule is written and what the rule is written for and the position that he was in, he was wrong, okay? So it's a happening. I expect him to be super, super better, and I don't expect it to happen again in his career. And we use it as a teaching point for everybody else on defense. We do not want you to be in that position. That's not a healthy position to be in when you're tackling someone.
Steven, then Tommy?
I'll just make sure to follow up on Brent first. Mike Hell's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I
Mhm.
understand where you're coming from. I wanted to ask you about recruiting, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. How has the pivot you've made in season affected who you're looking at and the traits that you value in prospects?
No pivot whatsoever. We're still going after the exact same individuals, same people are committed, still going after guys that were on our list and new people as well.
Would you say you're less inclined to bring in a traditional pocket passer?
I would say that anybody that's capable of moving the football, if they're exceptional, whether they're a drop back or a drop back or a movement quarterback, the key word is being exceptional.
And same thing as far as offensive linemen too. It's not like you're looking for more road graders based on what you're doing.
No, if we could keep the guys healthy who we got, they seem like they've been road grading just fine enough. We just got to keep them out there on the football field.
Tommy and then Nate?
Hey, Coach, have you noticed in your coaching career after a loss like that the more veteran players respond differently than, say, the true freshmen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The more veteran players understand that their time is coming to an end and how important every single contest is. Younger players, they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and sometimes they may take a game or two for granted. That's just human nature. Young people versus older people. But the key is to get everyone to have the same train of thought, to understand how important each one of the 12 games is as an individual game, which gives you an opportunity, if you play the game the right way and you play it well, and if you're blessed, then you get an opportunity to play a 13th game or a 14th game or a 15th game, depending on who you are. But it's different than other sports. You know, you can be flat 10, 12 games in basketball and you can still make it to the tournament, you can still make the Sweet 16. Football's not like that. You get 12 opportunities and you have to be right most of the time if you're going to have an opportunity to go to postseason.
Nate, and then WA our way back.
When I'm backed up before looking to the future, how did you come across, how did you get the ball from that was signed by Groza, Brown, and Ernie? That's
Okay?
an interesting trio.
Someone came up and gave it to me.
Since you got the job here?
Mhm.
I didn't know if it went prior time.
It's
So,
not actually my possession. It belongs to the university.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so hoping, and maybe I caught you on a day where you're inclined to talk about future rule changes. That might be coming. But as I understand it, you're going to get some roster relief in this upcoming recruiting cycle for guys who transfer out of your program. You're going to be allowed to assign 7 additional guys. But as I understand it, you can replace those 7 players if they leave after the early signing period. Do you think that rule has gone far enough?
I don't know if it's going to read exactly the way you said it, so I don't want to comment on it. It's a little bit, the question you're asking is a little bit different than the one that Brent asked, and I felt I could go there with him. I don't feel comfortable going there with you because there's still some other things involved in what you said that I'm not sure you guys are aware of.
Is the 7, was that coach's recommendation that you guys talked about?
It came from somewhere else, not the coaches. That all the numbers do not come from the coaches. Okay, it came from somewhere else.
Hey, Coach. Last week, Marcus Paul was named to the ACC football honors class. Just was wondering what his lasting impact was on the Syracuse University football program.
You know, I've heard stories about Marcus. I don't think it's really appropriate, and do I feel comfortable talking totally about it? I would ask you to go and talk to the guys that actually knew him personally. I heard the stories and I know about all his deeds, but I really wouldn't do him justice. I could recommend oh my God, Coach Will. I mean, there's individuals that you can talk to him about it would do much, much better than myself.
Mark and then Roshan.
Coach, when your team gets back on the practice field tomorrow, what will you be looking for from them to let you know that they're back on track, they're ready to go?
Practice is going to be really interesting on Tuesday. Everybody that shows up needs to understand that it's going to be extremely interesting.
Can you elaborate on that?
They need to understand that it's going to be extremely interesting for everybody that shows up.
Okay.
Roshan and Calvin.
Coach, NC State has one of the best rushing defenses in the conference, if not the best. What have you seen on film from them in terms of what you guys can take advantage of?
Not much. I mean, they look like they don't want people to run the ball at all, and they force people to throw the football. So we're working right now. I was stopped, came down for this press conference, and I'll go back up there again. There's a lot of work to be done. It's a good football team that stops the run.
And did you have a conversation with any of your coaches, or I guess thoughts going through your head in terms of pulling Tucker and Schrader at some point during that third quarter or that fourth quarter?
No, I did not talk to my coaches about pulling Tucker and pulling Schrader in the fourth quarter. I pulled Tucker and I pulled Schrader in the fourth quarter. And then Tucker came back and had a conversation with me. And then I put him back in because that's what he wanted. And if he wanted to go back into that game, then he sure wasn't going back into that game himself, that Schrader was going to go with him. And if Schrader was going to go back with him, then the offensive line was going to go back with him. And it was a very private conversation between him and I. And I don't think he went back in for records. I think he went back in for some stuff that was unbelievable. And you're talking about a young man in 2 years has never came up and talked to me in the middle of a game. But I pulled him. And then he came over and had a conversation with me. 2 years, he's never had a conversation with me during a football game. And based off of that conversation, he was put back in the game. Not for records, for other things, which are private.
Fair enough. Does that speak to his growth as a person, his relationship with you, or anything like that? Or was
It speaks to me that I've never had a player of his quality wanting to go back into a game like that. The last time I had a conversation with somebody like that during a game was Jimmy Garoppolo in 2013. And when you have players that good doing things that normally players like that wouldn't want to do, I'm going to always go with that player, regardless of what happens on the field and what I have to deal with in this press conference for doing it. I'm a player's coach. That's the way I'm going to go.
Calvin?
Coach, you speak about the lack of physicality in the game against Louisville. What role did the bye week play in that?
You know what? It's interesting because the bye week is something for you to heal so that you can be physical. That we healed and we weren't. What a concept. What a dilemma.
Steven and Tommy?
So going back to, I guess, this recruiting cycle and maybe some uncertainties with transfers and scholarship allotment, what approach are you guys taking from a numbers perspective? I feel like your commitment number right now is maybe a little less than it would be this time of the year. Like, are you expecting to take a bunch of transfers?
I wouldn't say expecting it. You got to play both sides of the fence. You know, we're trying to recruit the best players we can because they'll stay in your program longer. When you look for a lot of transfers, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. There's only a reason why people are in the transfer portal, and the ones that don't normally have a lot of reasons sometimes are past our reach. So you really have to do a lot of research. Okay, I'd much rather have a younger kid that I knew 2 or 3 years what he's been doing for the last 2 or 3 years than someone that's been in someone else's program.
Well, I guess the issue that potentially pops up, depending on how many guys you have, is to have, if you use those extra scholarships on high school players, you continually have young rosters. Are you doing anything to maybe better gauge how many guys might be leaving, and I guess in turn, seeing how the experience balance is affected by that?
We're tracking all that stuff, and it's a moving thing as it goes. It's a slide ruler as it goes. Okay, slide ruler. Brent, help him out on that one. So it's got a lot of moving parts, but yes, we're tracking all that stuff and the balance of the roster, whether it's old or young, or where you want to go with it.
Tommy does a few more.
Dino, what does it say about a program like NC State that picks up their third loss and still finds them ranked in the top 25 as a respected program?
Good program, good coach. Dave Dorn does a fantastic job. He's one of the guys, I really do like him. He's really level-headed. We've exchanged concepts about football teams and how you build them. And he's somebody I enjoy having conversation with. I think he is an old-fashioned coach, which I like to think that I'm in that same category. And we kind of look at things the same way for the most part. So I know that that's a good football team. And to their credit, to have 3 losses and still be in the top 20, I think is outstanding.
When you have these conversations with other head coaches, do you ever find yourself almost biting your lip because you're talking so much football with each other that you almost feel like you're about to give something away?
No. If you've had a lot of those conversations, the last thing you do is give something away. But there's certain things that football coaches can talk about, just the generality of things, just to see if they're having some of the same issues or concepts, or problems with their young people that you're having with yours. And everybody's trying to get a hold of this generation and try to find out what makes them tick. But I think that head football coaches and coaches in general probably know them a little bit better than the average Joes, to tell you the truth, because we're around them all the time.
It's time for 2 more, starting in front of Roshan.
Do you have an update on Chris Elmore and if he's going to be back this week?
Not yet. Might be a good question to ask next week. Not yet.
Last question, if anybody's got it. Steven?
Anything you can share on Dylan Markowitz and maybe, you know, I guess the message you're gonna try and send to quarterbacks that you're recruiting after, you know, after going to Garrett this year, playing at how you got?
You know, first of all, you know I don't comment on the guys that aren't on the team, but I love Dylan, and I will say that Dylan did it the right way, and voiced his opinions and his concerns, and was very mature about how he did it. And we wish him nothing but the best.
What will you, like, if there's a pocket passing quarterback you like out there, what's the message to them, right, to get them to come in and I guess believe that this offense can succeed in that fashion?
Jimmy Garoppolo ran this offense, and the offense ran for Jimmy Garoppolo. If we have someone that has the ability to be an archer and hit exactly what they can hit with one of the fastest releases I've ever seen, which takes the place of their feet because they can actually take a ball and throw it somewhere before someone can hit them, it's just like having feet. So it comes down to how good at what they do to whether the offense bends one way or another for them. The coolest thing is having the flexibility to do both, which means you have the ability to track both types of players. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
I'll cover up for Wednesday's request. I'm also going to